My name is Sarah Nielsen, and I'm a technical trainer for the Mountain Plains Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. This webinar series is provided by the Mountain Plains Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. The Mountain Plains Mental Health Technology Transfer Center is funded by SAMHSA to provide training, resources, and technical assistance to mental health providers and other practitioners in North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, Colorado, and Montana.
Welcome to the Building Capacity of School Personnel to Address the Mental Health Needs of Students, second webinar session. The focus of this session is on embedded strategies, on integrated and interdisciplinary services, focusing on mental health promotion, prevention, and intervention throughout the school day. My name is Susan Basic. I'm the Director of Every Moment Counts and Professor Emerita of the Occupational Therapy Program at Cleveland State University in Ohio. The primary speaker for today's webinar is Carol Conway, an occupational therapist at Hudson City Schools in Ohio, where she's a member of the Mental Health Leadership Team. She is also an OT change leader for Every Moment Counts. During the first webinar, I provided foundation information on Every Moment Counts and the multi-tiered public health framework that is applied to address the mental health needs of all students in schools. This focuses on the promotion of positive mental health, as well as the early detection and prevention of mental health challenges in students at risk. It also involves supporting students with the most significant needs. In this webinar, Carol will be sharing more specific examples of how this work is actually implemented by interdisciplinary school personnel at the grassroots level. Before Carol begins, I'm going to take a minute to share information on why integrated services are considered best practice, as opposed to pull-out therapy in isolated settings. First, it's the law. IDEA mandates that teachers and related service providers support the student's IEP in the least restrictive environment to the maximum extent possible. Secondly, children and youth with disabilities and/or mental health challenges go to school to participate in academic and non-academic activities, and not to receive therapy or counseling. Third, social and emotional skills are best learned by practicing the actual skills in the environment where they're needed with other students and adults. And then lastly, pulling students out of class for therapy is disruptive to their education and social participation. So now let's hear from Carol on how embedding mental health strategies using integrated services is actually done.
When we integrate our services into the natural settings of the school day, it gives us access to all students in tiers 1, 2, and 3. We can informally observe students not on IEPs. We have opportunities to include these children who are at risk in our small group interventions. We can tune into situational stressors such as divorce, poverty, bullying. Integrated services gives us a bigger bang for the therapy buck. It really maximizes the impact of what therapies can do in schools. On this slide, we listed many of the natural settings of the school day where we provide our services. Most of them are the general education settings, where we have access to children in tiers 1, 2, and 3. If we do need to see children in a separate intervention area, we try to do that alongside of their non-disabled peers by inviting them into small group interventions. If you are presently seeing mainly Tier 3 students in the resource setting, you can begin to access Tier 1 and Tier 2 students at lunch and recess. By providing interventions during lunch and recess, you can support your children on IEPs alongside of their peers. Many of my services are provided this time of the day in a collaborative manner, along with the speech pathologist, an intervention specialist, or a school counselor. Integrated services naturally lead to the collaboration between disciplines. Integrated services are defined as the provision of both education and therapeutic strategies within a student's natural environment. We assess, plan, and implement interventions on common goals. I do not write OT-only goals. I always write a goal in collaboration with my team. Integrated services are not services that are taking place in the back of the classroom. but these are services that are skillfully embedded into the natural context of the day. In a study by Milner and Kelly in 2009, they asked students with disability and mental health challenges if they felt included within their school settings. Students with disabilities and mental health challenges described feeling in but not of. They felt spatially proximal, yet socially distant. By providing our services in isolated settings where students do not have access to their peers without disabilities, we may be unknowingly contributing to these feelings of isolation. Milner and Kelly determined that these feelings of isolation undermined the individual's sense of belonging and limited their ability to achieve a productive life after high school. True inclusion of students with disability fosters a sense of belonging and promotes both mental and physical health. During the remainder of the presentation, you will see examples of how I've embedded the 10 moments for mental health when I'm working with students. The moments for mental health are located in the Embedded Strategies tab of the Every Moment Counts website. Embedded strategies refer to placing interactions and activities aimed at promoting positive mental health firmly into all aspects of the school day. In the classroom, lunchroom, hallways, restroom, during recess, and after school. Moments for mental health were developed to help school personnel learn and apply practical strategies that can be embedded throughout the school day. On this slide, the pictures are showing a caring connection between students. Creating caring connections is one of the 10 moments for mental health found on our website. Back in 2011, I reached out to Dr. Basic for assistance in changing the service delivery model in our district. Our district was mainly using a one-on-one pull-out clinical model. I was aware that we should be providing an integrated model, but creating change in our district seemed overwhelming. Hudson City Schools is a high-performing suburban school district located between Cleveland and Akron, Ohio. There are approximately 6,500 students in the district. We employ the equivalent of 4.5 OTs, 8 speech pathologists, 1 PT, and a PT assistant. Full-time caseload for school-age children is about 50 students. The majority, if not all, were Tier 3 students. This picture reflects our feelings when it came to changing practice. It felt like a mighty big leap. As part of the Every Moment Counts initial grant, Hudson City Schools developed a protocol to shift our services from a pull-out model to an integrated model. As you can see in this chart, we created a large change in a short period of time. In our initial time study with OTs and PTs, we found that we were providing individual pull-out therapy in an isolated setting 75% of the time. We developed and implemented a protocol for change, and within 1 year, when we repeated the time study, we had moved to providing integrated services to 61% of the time. In 2 years, we were providing integrated services 71% of the time. We have repeated the time study twice since 2014, and we remain in the range of 75 to 85% of our services being integrated into the natural settings of the day. On this slide, I have provided some key concepts for creating change in our district. This slide is meant to be a broad overview of the process. Understanding the law and the evidence is critical. It is hard to argue against the law and the evidence. The law mandates that services be provided in the least restrictive environment. The evidence tells us children learn best when practicing skills in the environment they need the skill in. We worked from the top down. Getting buy-in from the administrators to support this change is critical. Sharing the information about the law and the evidence with administrators is a good starting point. We also had a diverse grassroots approach, identifying our champion teachers who we had strong relationships with, and we started with them. We started small. We created one lunch group. We co-taught one lesson. We went to recess 1 day a week. These small changes led to big changes quickly. I believe we were able to create change quickly because we saw so much growth in our students. The next part of this presentation will focus on specific examples of integrated, collaborative Tier 1, 2, and 3 services. There will be examples given for the academic and the non-academic settings of school. First, we will address Tier 1 approaches. These universal strategies can be systemic or individual. We learned when doing this work that Tier 1, 2, and 3 strategies do not exist separately. These strategies cannot be put in separate silos. A Tier 1 strategy can be used as a Tier 3 intervention. Tier 3 interventions often benefit all children. So although we attempt to present the strategies separately, you will see how many of the strategies are useful in all 3 tiers. District and school-wide approaches are Tier 1 strategies. Related service personnel need to get a seat at the table. Your unique expertise is needed in these Tier 1 interventions. This slide lists some examples of district and school-wide committees and teams that are developing and providing mental health promotion strategies. Look for opportunities to join these Tier 1 interventions. Related service personnel are often overlooked. You may have to ask to be invited. Also note that providing in-services is a Tier 1 intervention. Sharing your skills with colleagues through an in-service is a universal strategy. On this slide, you will find some familiar Tier 3 programs that are easily integrated into the classroom as Tier 1 strategies. We have found that general education teachers find these programs helpful for all students. When the general education teacher is using these programs in her classroom, it is a win-win. The students who are not identified as needing special education are learning new skills from these programs, and students on IEPs are having their needs addressed every day as opposed to one time a week in a 30-minute pull-out session. Children demonstrate faster growth when these programs are embedded into the natural settings of the day. Every Moment Counts Refreshing Recess and Comfortable Cafeteria programs are examples of Tier 1 collaborative integrated interventions. You will be learning more about these programs in upcoming presentations. School-wide Tier 1 strategies promote positive mental health for all students. There are many effective programs that address mental health promotion. These are examples of Tier 1 strategies that we are using in my district: the Zones of Regulation, Social Thinking, and the Leader in Me, which is based on Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. These programs promote mental health literacy, helping children learn how to be healthy and happy. They address social emotion learning, helping children tune into their feelings and how their feelings impact their function. They help students with coping skills, recognizing their triggers, and using tools to cope when they face challenges. This is an example of a Tier 1 intervention in our 3rd grade building. At the beginning of each school year, the school counselor and I co-teach a refresher lesson in the Gen Ed classroom. I developed a Google slideshow presentation using the movie Inside Out to teach the refresher lesson. We ask that the general education teacher stay in the classroom when we present the information. We try to include the teacher in the lesson with us. This is critical in working towards embedding the concepts and the language in the Gen Ed classroom after we leave. Students who are in IEPs in that classroom are part of the lesson. For that week, I count the time in the classroom as their IEP minutes. The power of any program comes from embedding the language all day long, across school environments by all disciplines. Working collaboratively is key to effective interventions and student growth. On this slide, there are 4 examples of Tier 1 strategies that are helpful to all students. The hope is to teach these strategies to educators who can then embed them into their classrooms at natural transitions during the day. I teach deep, slow breathing with the help of this sphere to provide visual support. Children breathe in as I slowly open the breathing ball. I ask them to hold their breath momentarily and then to breathe out as I slowly close the sphere. We may take 3 to 8 breaths depending on the day. I follow the breathing exercise with listening to the chime. I ask the students to sit as quietly as they can while listening to the chime. When the chime ends, we sit quietly again for 2 to 3 breaths. Then I play the chime again. When the students can no longer hear the chime, we are ready to start the lesson. Students can identify that they now feel calm and relaxed and ready to learn. Teachers have embedded this simple strategy into their classroom and use it as a way to transition children into the next activity. It is particularly helpful to transition students into language arts or math class after lunch or recess. Other helpful strategies are listed on this slide. Teaching progressive muscle relaxation, teaching cognitive imagery, helping students learn to use self-calming statements. One should note that these strategies are quite helpful for Tier 2 students who are at risk because of the feelings of depression and anxiety. In my third grade building, I co-taught a lesson with the school counselor, the intervention specialist, and the teacher on cognitive imagery. We described this self-calming tool as taking a mind vacation. Students were asked to find a picture of a place that they found calming. Once they found their picture, they were asked to imagine and write about the following questions. What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? What can you smell? This lesson helps students begin to develop the skills needed for cognitive imagery. The students thoroughly enjoyed this activity. We then created a collaborative slideshow of all their mind vacations and shared it as a whole class activity. In this example, we addressed at least 3 of the Every Moment Counts moments for mental health. Talking about mental health, creating calm moments, and focusing on feelings. Perhaps you're an OT working on keyboarding or technology skills. This is an example of embedding mental health into a keyboarding goal. Most of you have heard of the Buddy Bench. The Buddy Bench was created by an elementary student a few years ago as a place for students to go when they needed a buddy to play with at recess. If a student was sitting on the Buddy Bench, other students knew to come and invite them to play. This is a simple Tier 1 intervention that many schools have adopted to help children who are at risk for feeling isolated on the playground. You can learn more by exploring the Buddy Bench website using the link on this slide. Buddy Benches help foster kindness, help children move and be active, and create caring connections. Next, we are going to focus on Tier 2 students. These are students who are at risk for mental health challenges. They may be students with or without disabilities. Many of our students with disabilities also have comorbid mental health challenges. When we work collaboratively in an integrated environment, we are more likely to identify earlier students who are at risk. We can then invite these students at risk into our lunch and recess groups, into our small group interventions for self-regulation and mental health literacy skills. As an OT, I may invite them into my small group writing interventions. As a speech therapist, I can invite them into my language interventions. School counselors are inviting them into their friendship groups as well as their changing family groups. A few years ago, at the beginning of a school year, 2 of our third grade students tragically lost a parent. The school community surrounded them with support, and the school counselor began to meet with the boys regularly. They would often stop by the OT room and use the therapy equipment to play. We would chat about how movement and exercise was a tool to make them feel better. As the holidays were approaching, the school counselor was wondering what she could do to support these boys during this time. I suggested to her that they make memory boxes for their families. We asked the boys to bring in pictures and mementos about their parents. Over 2 lunch periods, we created beautiful memory boxes for their families. During this time, the school counselor noted how much more the boys talked and shared their feelings when they were doing something. As an OT, I am quite aware that active engagement in a meaningful activity is likely to help children express their innermost feelings. It was the true collaboration between OT and the school counselor that created this positive experience for these boys. On this slide is a link to the AOTA Mental Health Toolkit that addresses grief and loss. If you are looking for a resource on how to support a student who is experiencing grief and loss, check out this site. This is one of the many resources in the AOTA School Mental Health Toolkit. The very next year, another third grade student was losing his father to cancer. I was aware of this, and I had incorporated the student into my small group interventions. He was working weekly with a school counselor so she could support his social emotional needs. One day, the student came bounding down the hallway with this beautiful canvas he had created for his father while working with a school counselor. He had such joy in his face. He had made this gift for his dad and his family shortly before his father passed away. The school counselor had used the idea of creating memories once again. This is an example of how collaboration changes practice. These three boys remained in many of my small group interventions, recess, lunch, zones of regulation, and writing clubs through 5th grade. I had developed strong, supportive, caring connections with them. They became peer models and also benefited from helping others while in my groups. Children who struggle with obesity are often at risk for depression and self-esteem issues, as well as physical and social emotional challenges. These children can be incorporated into our small group interventions to support both their physical and mental health. Before working with Every Moment Counts, I was not aware of OT's role in addressing obesity. I found the AOTA School Mental Health Toolkit resource for addressing obesity helpful. You may also read the journal article by Basic and Win, a multi-tiered approach to addressing the mental health issues surrounding obesity in children and youth, found in the Occupational Therapy and Health Care Journal. We will now move to discussing Tier 3 interventions, examples of embedding mental health strategies into the natural settings of the day. When I talk about integrating my services into the natural settings of the day, some people think I'm describing working in the general education classroom all day long. This is far from accurate. The general education settings include the playground, the cafeteria, art, music, and PE class. It includes working at a student's locker or in the bathrooms. The location of services is always determined by the IEP team and based on the student's needs. My first thought is always, where in the general education setting can I support this student? If this is not advantageous, I work down the continuum. The general education large group setting is the least restrictive environment. Pull-out individual services are the most restrictive services in the public school. There are times when pull-out individual services are the best services for a student. However, it is not likely that the pull-out model is the best service delivery model for a student's entire educational career. What we have learned in our work is that small moments truly do make a big difference. This slide demonstrates how an OT provided yoga instruction to a kindergarten classroom as a targeted intervention for a student on an IEP. By providing this intervention in the classroom, all students, as well as the teacher, were benefiting from the yoga exercises. The OT taught and practiced yoga stretches one time a week in the classroom, and the teacher used the strategies all week long. The moments for mental health strategies being demonstrated here include offering calm moments and helping children move and be active. The use of literature is a powerful tool for teaching mental health literacy. When I integrate my services into a general education or a resource language arts classroom, I collaborate with the teacher in developing mental health literacy themes based on the books being read in class. We talk about and write about the character's choices, triggers, tools, and strategies. I can help students develop social participation skills, self-regulation skills, executive functioning skills, and social pragmatic skills when I integrate my services in the language arts classroom. Mental health literacy is easily embedded into the written expression curriculum in early elementary. This is the time when students are developing a rich emotional vocabulary. Embedding emotional vocabulary into their writing is a common practice in our district. Students may write about what makes them happy, what makes them calm, what is kindness, and they may also write about the themes from the books that they have read in class. In middle elementary, mental health literacy continues to be embedded into the written expression curriculum. The themes become broader and more personal. For example, I may ask students to describe a personal character strength, or ask them, what makes you a good friend? I may ask them to describe how they can quiet their inner critic with positive self-talk. Lessons are developed according to the student's needs. The themes within my small group interventions in a resource classroom will differ in comparison to the themes I use in the general education classroom. In middle and high school, the themes become more complex in the gen ed setting. In the resource setting, I have collaborated with the intervention specialist to embed mental health literacy into a variety of activities. Some of those activities are listed on the slide. One of the favorites is having pen pals, either younger students in the district or writing to people who live in nursing homes. What we have learned in doing this work is that majority of students want to and enjoy talking and writing about their feelings. For students on IEPs who have been identified as needing supports in self-regulation, social participation, social-emotional, and social pragmatic skills, we provide small group interventions using concepts from the zones of regulation, social thinking, and social-emotional learning. These groups contain students on IEPs, students at risk, and peer models. The group is co-taught by interdisciplinary school teams. The teams include any combination of teachers, school counselors, occupational therapists, social workers, and speech pathologists. Teams are determined by student needs. You will now view a video that describes this co-teaching model.
We're not only reaching the children that we've identified as needing some extra supports, but we're also being proactive and just promoting mental wellness throughout our school. Hi, my name's Kristen, and I'm the school counselor here at McDowell, and I work collaboratively with Carol, our OT. We all bring our own skill sets, and we see the kids' issues through maybe different lenses, but yet we all have the same philosophy when it comes to incorporating some of the same language from the zones of regulation. We have been able to support the teachers in that endeavor, and I felt like we could really monitor kids and their needs and their reactions, and if a particular student needed extra care, just having that team in there was fabulous. So it's just really been a neat thing to be able to collaboratively put supports in place for kids and their needs.
And when we're doing an activity or whatnot, and they get pulled to go somewhere else instead of bringing an activity, it can cause them to be frustrated or uncomfortable. And so a lot of times having these activities in the classroom allow them to still work on the skills that they need, as well as still be a part of the general ed curriculum, which is what they love. My name is Katie Lynn, and I am an intervention specialist at McDowell Elementary School, which is a third grade building. And the co-teaching model is my way of life. I feel that everybody brings their own perspectives into the classroom, and everybody has their own types of strengths. It gives us the opportunity to learn from each other, first of all, and for all of us to give the best of what we know to the classroom. I have seen the zones of regulation help my students in multiple ways. One of the biggest ways I've seen it help is giving my students a rich vocabulary to express their feelings throughout the day. Giving them learned words in the classroom, as well as helping them classify these feelings into the levels of how they feel. And I also, as we get more and more into it, it gives them the strategies to be able to adapt to real life situations to do their best work as students.
We continue this Tier 3 small group intervention through middle school for identified students. Early on, the zones of regulation and the social thinking concepts overlap and support common themes. As the student develops, we focus more on social thinking. Social thinking is the process by which people interpret the thoughts, beliefs, intentions, emotions, knowledge, and actions of another person, along with the context of the situation, to understand that person's experience. As I mentioned earlier, these groups are made up of students on IEPs, students at risk, and peer models. It is also important to note that students who are receiving accommodations via a 504 because they are experiencing mental health challenges such as anxiety, depression, or obsessive compulsive disorder are often part of these small group interventions. This is an example of students on IEPs receiving services during whole group instruction in the general education setting. The general education teacher requested that the whole class receive zones of regulation, social thinking, and social emotional learning lessons alongside the Tier 3 students. The Tier 3 students qualified for services under the emotional disturbance disability category. The class received a weekly lesson co-taught by the OT, speech therapist, intervention specialist, and general education teacher. When asked how he could give up so much academic time, he stated, "I would argue that these were the most important 40 minutes of our week." He went on to explain that the concepts taught in the weekly lessons helped all his students. He also believed that the weekly lessons helped his students without disabilities learn how to interact more effectively with students who had emotional disturbances. He reported seeing more empathy and compassion in his classroom as the year went on. With our students with more significant needs, we use the co-teaching method within the resource classroom to address collaborative goals. Many children with disabilities are at risk for comorbid mental health challenges. We address the mental health and developmental needs of these students through engaging functional tasks. This student is involved in a cooking lesson co-taught by the OT, speech therapist, and intervention specialist. He is following a recipe for making a healthy fruit salad. So many skills are addressed during this fun activity, too many to enumerate. Students are following sequential directions, developing fine motor skills, learning to collaborate with peers, all while learning that eating healthy is good for both your mental and physical health. As an OT, integrating my services into the art class is one of my favorite parts of the week. Art should be an enjoyable activity for all students. I am often disappointed when I go into art class and find the students with disabilities all sitting at one table and the paraprofessionals completing their art projects for them. OTs are experts at adapting materials and environments and promoting social participation. We should be doing this in the art classroom. Speech therapists are experts in social pragmatic skills. Art class is a wonderful time to share ideas and materials in an informal manner. In art, we can help students apply self-regulation strategies and practice social participation skills in the natural setting. The moments for mental health seen in the art classroom include creating a positive environment, caring connections, focusing on strength, and promoting positive emotions. Some school districts do not have art education. Rather, art is the responsibility of the general education teacher. This is true for one of the Every Moment Counts original change leaders, Leslie Falkinder. At her school district, the speech therapist, counselor, OT, and general education teacher co-teach art lessons together. They use a model of peer-mediated interventions where peers work with students with disabilities in creating art together. The gen ed teachers are grateful for the extra support during art lessons. The students without disabilities learn how to interact with students with disabilities, and together they have a positive art experience. Social participation promotes positive mental health. Meet Savannah. In this picture, she is a fourth grade student who wanted to participate in a school orchestra. As her occupational therapist, I asked the orchestra teacher if I could provide OT services within her small group adaptive orchestra class using the co-teaching method. Savannah also participated in the general education orchestra class. The orchestra teacher was thrilled to have my support. I knew nothing about orchestra, but I did know a lot about fine motor skills, bilateral integration, rhythm, social participation, and self-regulation skills. Savannah was a skilled violinist. Did I happen to mention that Savannah is a student with Down syndrome? While playing the violin, Savannah demonstrates beautiful orchestra posture. She is working on core strength in a meaningful, motivating manner. It is important to note that Savannah often slumps and holds her head in her hands while sitting at her desk in class. Meaningful participation not only promotes mental health, it can also motivate students to engage core muscles and develop strength. My 4th and 5th grade students who participated in orchestra also performed on stage with their peers. Watching the joy and excitement these students experienced alongside of their peers was inspiring. Participation in meaningful and enjoyable leisure occupation promotes positive mental health for all students. Participation for students with disabilities in orchestra is a social justice issue. I run numerous lunch and recess groups with my Tier 3 students. Their time in these groups make up a portion of their IEP minutes. We refer to this group as buddies. We use the research-based peer-mediated intervention approach in these programs. The groups are composed of students on IEPs, usually my students with the most significant needs, and peers from their homeroom. Being a buddy is a volunteer classroom job. We do a short training each year in the homeroom defining the program and student responsibilities, and then we ask interested students to sign up to be a buddy. We often get so many buddies that we need to rotate them through on a monthly basis. These lunch and recess programs use many of the activities and themes from Every Moment Counts, Comfortable Cafeteria, and Refreshing Recess programs. Seeing students with disabilities at recess and lunch gives me access to students without disabilities. This allows me to see students in the least restrictive environment and practice skills in the natural settings of the day. The speech therapist and I use a co-teaching model during buddies. I have also co-taught buddies with an intervention specialist. I feel like these pictures speak for themselves. When you look at the pictures, is it easy to spot the children with disabilities? Clearly, you can spot the joy. Interestingly, we have found that our students who are at risk often make the best buddies. Many of them are looking for a place to fit in, thrive on helping others, and enjoy a little extra adult attention. Many of these students return year after year to be buddies. The caring connections between all who attend buddies persist over time. We always start lunch buddies with the question of the day. As the children arrive, they go directly to the whiteboard to answer the question. The questions are usually conversation starters. The hope is for students to learn a little bit about each other and to see that they are more alike than different. The questions may be about feelings or interests. One thing we know for sure, if we do not have time to put a question on the board, the students let us know about it. Buddies share a meal together. We practice talking and listening skills. We embed simple games to teach these skills during lunch. One of my favorite games is to come up with 6 personal interest-seeking questions and write them on the board. Students, as well as adults, roll a die, and they must answer a question that correlates with the number they rolled. An important rule of Buddy's Lunch is that all adults must sit and eat with the students. Sitting and eating with children provides a more social and nurturing environment for all. One of the activities we offer at Buddy's Recess is yoga. Yoga is an evidence-based practice that supports positive physical and mental health. During yoga, students experience the following moments for mental health: offering calm moments, caring connection, and moving and being active. Recess is often an overlooked time of the day to provide direct services. I often ask my students what types of activities they would like to do at recess. Dance parties and crafts are quite popular for my fifth graders. The fourth graders enjoy board games, puzzles, and Go Noodle. My third graders really love Legos, giant Jenga, and kickball. Parachute games are a favorite for all my students. Supporting students at recess and lunch allows you to help students practice new skills in the environment they need the skill in. At recess and lunch, I am addressing motor skills, self-care skills, social participation skills, and sensory processing skills within functional activities. These meaningful activities promote positive mental health. This top-down approach is supported by both the law and the research. The Buddies program promotes understanding between students with and without disabilities. It teaches empathy and compassion. The moments for mental health addressed in our Buddies program include fostering kindness, creating positive environments, moving and being active, and promoting positive emotions. OTs often refer to the concept of therapeutic use of self. In our work, we encourage the adults to identify what brings you joy. What are you good at? How can you incorporate your talent, the one that brings you joy, into your work? The speech therapist I work with is a gifted singer and musician. We developed a Music Buddies program together. On the days that we have Music Buddies, I can see that gleam in her eyes. Music brings her joy, and it brings joy to the children. This is an example of therapeutic use of self. Engaging in activities that you love with your students is good for your mental health. If you are happy and more fulfilled in your work, you will be a more effective teacher, therapist, or counselor. Our Buddies program began about 10 years ago. Presently, the program is being used in grades 3 through 7. We began changing our service delivery model 7 or 8 years ago to an integrated collaborative model. We have been providing social emotional education and mental health literacy across our elementary schools for about 6 years. We believe that we are changing the culture of our schools. Students with and without disabilities are developing true friendships. More meaningful participation for our Tier 2 and 3 students is occurring as they reach middle school and high school. Meet Nicholas. He was my student in 3rd to 5th grade. He loved basketball. He and I played a lot of basketball during those years. Playing basketball is a therapeutic use of self-activity for me. He now competes on the 8th grade basketball team. He attends every practice, has played in several games, has scored baskets, and has even pulled down rebounds. He is a beloved member of his team. His coach made him a team member and not a manager. Participation is a social justice issue. Participation promotes positive mental health. Finding a place to fit in and belong in middle school and high school is important for all students, but especially for our Tier 2 and 3 students. Academic and social inclusion promote mental health and help prevent mental illness. A few years back, I became aware of the National Sparkle Effect cheerleading program. I passed this information on to the high school intervention specialist who developed the club. Sparkle Cheer is an inclusive cheer program where students with disabilities cheer alongside of their peers at home football and basketball games. Each student with a disability has a peer mentor. Our students with disabilities are active participants in all the fun activities that surround cheerleading in high school. On game days, they can be seen wearing their cheer uniform around the high school. Fitting in matters. 3 years ago, 2 seniors at our high school formed a club that they named A Time to Shine. A Time to Shine is an after-school drama club for students with disabilities and their peers. They write, practice, and perform 2 plays a year. Students with disabilities perform all the parts in the play. Some have peer mentors on stage with them. Students who do not want to act can have behind-the-scenes roles, including ticket sales, costumes, and building sets. Many of our students at risk have found a place to belong in this club as peer mentors. Studies suggest that belonging to at least one extracurricular activity helps promote mental wellness. Meet Crystal Boyd, an occupational therapist I work with. After participating in an Every Moment Counts community of practice, she started a video club at our high school. The club started with just a couple of Tier 2 and 3 students who wanted to belong to an after-school club. The club quickly grew into a club for all students. Crystal found the one activity that would interest some of our students who had no place to belong. These are some of my favorite pictures of our high school students. From homecoming dances to marching band, our Tier 2 and 3 students are finding ways to belong. They are developing caring connections with their peers. Our hope is that these connections continue way beyond high school. If collaborative integrative services are new to you, it is likely that you will experience some barriers as you begin to change your service delivery model. Some of the barriers you may face are listed on this slide. None of these barriers are insurmountable if you are able to keep a growth mindset and continue moving forward one step at a time. Listed on this slide are some important takeaways about collaborative integrated services. Remember, this model is best practice, evidence-based, and the law. It is a paradigm shift for many. The model is at least cost neutral. Our district did not change our service delivery model to save money. Working collaboratively allows staff to learn from each other and to support each other. In this model, mental health and therapeutic strategies are embedded all day long, every day in the natural settings of school. Related service personnel report feeling less isolated when they use this model. And finally, our services are no longer silos when we use this model. When you begin to change your service delivery model, make sure you understand and can clearly articulate the law and the evidence. Start small and keep moving forward, even if you make one change to start. Identify your champion teachers, administrators, and related service colleagues, and begin with them. Create your own community of practice for support. And finally, remember that every moment counts in the life of a child. This will keep you motivated to create change and keep moving forward.
Now that you've heard from Carol about how to embed mental health promotion and prevention strategies throughout the day, take some time to jot down and discuss what you can do in your specific school using the Webinar 2 discussion handout. So what are your next steps? Refer to the facilitation guide for Session 2, complete the readings and suggested activities. Also, review the facilitation guide for Session 3 and confirm the date and time for your third face-to-face meeting. Most of all, enjoy the process. If you'd like to get in touch with Carol Conway, here is her email address, as well as how to follow her on Twitter and on our Every Moment Counts Facebook page.